Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new episode, Seeing Problems as Opportunities. So I want to welcome you to the conversation. And if we look at this, we have a quote that we start with. Something is definitely wrong with us if there is no conscious demand, like a problem, to know or be the knowing of truth. Problems are resisted or resented, and that makes their solution impossible without great suffering. So clarity of vision gives you the intestinal fortitude to deal with the images which suggest themselves wisely, joyously, fearlessly, and compassionately. And
Yeah,
that's right from I Am My Own Ancestor. Welcome, Betty. How are you today?
I'm fine, dear. Thank you.
Is there anything you want to add to the topic that we're talking about? This episode is seeing problems as opportunities. And as we get going, I'll say one more thing, and it's all based on Margaret Laird's pamphlet, I Am My Own Ancestor. Again, that's all available at scientificmetaphysics.org.
Thank you.
So anything else you want to say about tonight's episode?
Well, there's just a story connected with it. Do you want me to tell it now?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Good way to
Well,
get started.
like an example, there's a story of a woman who lived in an apartment home for many years. And at some point along the way, the owner ran into financial difficulties and needed to sell. And so this lady loved living there and she bought the apartment home. But she also looked at the situation and felt sorry for the owner that was having to sell. So she said, you could stay on for a while you work things out. And so the owner stayed on after she no longer owned the property. And what happened out of that attempt to do good by the previous owner uh, turned out to be kind of a situation that was resented because the former owner did not like to see the changes that the new owner was making. She didn't like being reminded of the fact that she now did not own the property. She was very unhappy about what was happening to her. And the whole thing brought the enjoyment of buying the property to a very unpleasant point for this new buyer. And she began to realize that she had thought she was doing something nice for the lady instead of looking at it and seeing that, well, it was obviously a situation in which there was a need for this woman to move on to something else and for this new buyer to go on and be a good businesswoman. Instead, she was being busy doing good deeds, she thought. And it turned out to be a much resented situation. Both of them were uncomfortable. Nobody was enjoying the situation. And and what it brought up for them to look at was the difference that occurs when you really try to be um, a good person and do a good deed for another person. You know, it's like the concept trying to fix the concept instead of looking at the principle that's at play when a problem comes up. You know, we human beings think that when a problem comes up, what there is to do is solve the problem. And what there really is to do is to look and see what's the value here. Why would this particular situation show up for me if there wasn't a valuable thing for me to look at?
Right. So
And when you,
it's a mind shift thing.
that's right. And instead I get wrapped up, you see, as a two-legged animal, I get wrapped up in thinking, how are we going to solve this problem? And that I missed entirely the value.
Well,
Because the
you missed,
value,
how we're going to solve the problem is one way, and it's going to have human footsteps, right? But it's the oh dear, worry, 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 worry. I've got this problem. And you get obsessed into shifting the picture in order to solve the problem. And that's where you take the left turn.
yeah, because the problem isn't there for you to solve the problem. The problem is there because it highlights some value that has benefit for you in seeing. And instead of that, you miss the whole thing by getting fixated on how to solve the problem.
Right.
Then that's not the answer.
Right.
The answer is always in an opening to be yourself at a level you haven't been yet.
Right. And I want to go back to, I'm reminded of the conversation that Margaret had with Bicknell Young, who was her teacher when she had situations show up that she wasn't particularly welcoming of. And he basically pointed out and had her look at how it absolutely could look no other way for her own growth and development.
Yeah, and he actually said to her, you will find that you will learn things through this experience that you couldn't learn any other way.
Right.
And that's the value, not
Right.
solving that particular problem.
Right. So the other thing that I'm, and we've said this in other episodes, so go hunt for the other episodes. But we've said this in other episodes.
We said it all.
Right. But the thing that comes up for me when you say that you couldn't have learned it in any other way, whatever. So in your moments where you have that clarity that this is the way life looks today, curiosity.
Yeah, it's an opening to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's the opportunity is to be curious. Like, well, what is there? While it looks like a pile of you know what. And then I'm reminded of the story about the kid who just was Mr. Optimistic, like just looked for had the good and everything. And his parents thought, aha, we'll teach him a lesson. We're going to teach him more like what the real world is. So on his birthday, they just had this big, huge pile of horse manure delivered. And it was this big pile of horse manure. And that was his birthday present. And so he went out there and he was digging through through the manure and all that. And they looked at each other and they scratched their head and they said, what are you doing? He said, well, with all this manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about. Yep. Seeing problems as opportunities.
Because that's what they are.
Yeah.
They're wake-up calls.
Right.
They're not trying to get you to solve that problem. They want to wake you up to the opportunity, the value that there is opening up for you that you're not seeing.
Right. It's like shedding that which you've known yourself to be and seeing a whole new you come to view.
Yeah, it's a new step.
Yeah.
In what's going on.
Just like a snake sheds its skin.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, we'll get on with it then. Just embellishing. All right. So if we look at I Am My Own Ancestor, which we're basing this on pages 7 and 8, and you can get the booklet from the scientificmetaphysics.org for those of you who are interested in actually having this in your library, because it's really excellent. But on page 7 and 8, Margaret Laird writes, nothing in the human sense of things turns out well when personality instead of principle is the motivation.
Yep.
So when you look at it and personality takes over, that's the, oh dear, what do I do? Isn't this great? And I did that and all that, whether it's good or bad, it's the same thing about being personal. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, personality is really locks you into that I'm this two-legged thing that you see in the mirror, and it behaves a certain way, and there are right things to do and wrong things to do, and I must solve this. Instead of seeing that that's the way your individuality is being seen at the moment. But what I'm up to seeing is the individuality, which is divine being, looking like a human being.
Yeah.
And when I see it for what it is, I'm no longer concerned with making that two-legged thing look good. It'll look like it looks. But what I'm up to is being myself. And myself is not the two-legged thing. That's just the way it looks on this level. Well, who I'm being is the reflective presence of the God idea. Yeah. Man is the expression of the God idea. The action of the God idea is man. They say it a million ways, but there is only one thing going on. all is infinite mind manifest. And this is what it looks like. So when I zero in on the picture and try to have Betty look good, I've missed the whole value.
Right.
I don't know who I am.
Right. I'll remember that the next time we're getting ready to go to luncheon. Okay. All right. And then in Science and Health on page 285, line 71, Margaret Laird writes, "What is the material personality which suffers, sins, and dies? It's not man, but man's counterfeit."
Yep.
So same thing. Material personality isn't you. You aren't that which you see in the mirror.
It's the picture that shows
This
up,
is
but
like
it's not
the
who you
shoe.
are.
This is like the shoe on the Monopoly board.
Right.
And yet, what makes you up, what makes me up, what makes Betty up is so much bigger than that, so much more broad than that.
Yep.
So, you know, I want to say it's like believing that this is you is like fake news. Okay, on we go. All right. And in Mind is the Athlete on page 12, Betty, you wrote, individual survival and well-being rests on an innate capacity for great flexibility. It is the ability to adapt and cope that actually allows us to survive. And that's true in the human being picture of things, that it's that human, Homo sapiens adapted much better than what came before.
Well, and the reason that picture that we described right there occurs is because the language identifying reality, which is what all of this human living is actually, it is our best view of reality that's present. It's the way we see reality right now, because the only thing present is reality. There's only one thing going on. But when I look at it, I think it looks like Betty.
Mm-hmm.
And if I buy that, I'm up the creek without a paddle.
Right.
Because that isn't it. It may look like that, but what's actually present? Life is present. Love is present. Truth is present. The God idea in action is all that's going on. And it looks like Betty doing something.
Yeah.
But if I get involved with the Betty thing, I've missed the point of who's present, what's present.
Right.
And what's present is always the God idea in action.
Right.
And that's individuality rather than the personal look.
Yeah. So up to this point, with all the things we've talked about, here's the one tip: drop the do-gooding. Drop the do-gooding in favor of creating a new good in your experience.
Yep.
Let your concept of good alone to disappear.
Yeah,
and it will reappear in fairer form.
That's exactly right. That's the way the language behaves, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
When you can leave it alone, it will disappear and reappear in fairer form. If you're attached to it, you're stuck.
Right.
Right. Yep. Great.
Very cool. All right. Now, if you're liking this conversation, please feel free to click the like button or the heart or whatever. And if you have a question, if you have a comment, anything like that, please put it in the comments, and then we'll get them. And please put it in, and we will get them and address them and bring them into the conversation. We love to have that interaction. So if you feel so inclined, please do that. Now, continuing on page 7 and 8 of I Am My Own Ancestor, Margaret Laird wrote, "Nothing in the human sense of things turns out well when personality instead of principle is the motivation." Is that the first one? Did I not copy that in?
No, you're skipping ahead.
Oh, I'm skipping back. No, wait, here it is. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. On page 8, that was the first one that we did already. So now fasting forward here. All right, on page 8, Mrs. Laird says, "Science teaches that there is but one ego, that individuality is understanding, and on that dimension of perception, personality disappears as personality to reappear as individuality.
Yep.
So unpack
Yeah.
that just a bit.
Right on. Yep.
Yeah, unpack it a little bit for us.
Well, you've got the 5-word phrase in there that makes all the difference in the world. There is but one ego.
Science teaches there is but one ego.
Yep. And
That
that's the whole,
individuality is understanding. And on that dimension of perception, personality disappears as personality to appear as individuality. Am I saying that when I get that it can only look this way and that it's for my own growth and development, I can allow it to be, and rather than having it be personality or personal, it's just being itself being, and I can get curious and I can be willing.
yeah, the thing is that you know, we have this in our human experience, we have this belief system that there's me, and then there's you, and then there's God, and then there's reality,
Right.
and then there's the way it looks, and oh dear, you know?
That's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And so the opportunity is when you look at that, that's why I picked out that little phrase, there is but one ego. Because the truth of the matter is, if I can get that for even a second, one ego, one being, one reality present, all expressing, seen however it's being seen, but that's what's going on, then I can forget about Betty and Kim and the idea of God and so on, and just say, wait a minute, just one action going on right now, perfect, whole, complete, free, joyous, satisfying, fulfilling. Oh, okay. Then I can drop the human efforting to have it mean something. And lo and behold, it is all that's going on. And the individuality, the spiritual real, becomes what's present. The seeming becomes the being right then,
Right.
right that instant, because there is only one thing going on. And the minute you drop the personality, the belief that you're a two-legged thing doing something, drop that and let it go, then reality is the presence of your experience humanly right then, right that minute. And you look around and say, oh, things have all worked out. This is marvelous.
Right.
You know, what a great life.
Yeah.
And right then you drop the whole thing. But for that moment, you took care of the whole, you got the value.
Right.
And on you go.
Right.
Yep.
And it could be like, well, how about that?
Yep.
How'd that show up? It's a miracle.
Yeah.
All right. And on Science and Health on page 285, starting on line 17, Mary Baker Eddy said that this way: the time has come for a finite conception of the infinite as the seat of mind to give place to the better understanding that science gives of the divine principle and idea.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of words, isn't it?
It is a lot of words, but there's a lot more in some of these quotes, so just stay tuned.
but the time has come, you know, right now, when a problem occurs, it means that I have an opportunity to step into a whole new me, because the thing I think is me isn't it.
Right.
And the opportunity is to let go of the Betty and just see that, wait a minute, I live and move and have being mentally. I always have.
Yep.
And it looks like Betty. And here's a new opportunity to see that that one thing in action is whole, perfect, complete right now, and all is well.
Yep. Shed the belief.
Yep. Step into the opportunity.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and the thing the thing to pay attention to, and what you've said, and I'm just going to reiterate here, is begin to see that the problems that arise for you have value.
Yep.
then they're not problems, but solutions freeing you from false views.
Yep. And I remember that statement that Mrs. Eddy has written, our false views produce the problems of which we complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. So and that just brings up, when you've got a false view or when you've got a complaint, you could say, what am I believing right now? And what's
Yeah.
the
And in
truth?
the story that I told at the beginning about the woman that bought the apartment house,
Yeah.
the false view was that she's a two-legged animal that could do something to help the other guy.
Yeah.
And that's not what's going on at all. That
Right.
may be the way it looks. It's not the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. And then in your book, A Mind is the Athlete, on pages 12 and 13, you say it this way, and notice how small that type is because there's such a big quote here. Okay, enough said. Distinguishing pre-existing circumstances and environment provides a measure of objectivity to discover what may be possible beyond experience. So far, science explores fundamental causation, which gives rise to observable phenomena.
Yeah. You missed a period in there, honey.
Well, I copied it exactly as it was.
I
So,
know, but so far, that's a period there.
so far. Oh, yeah, because there's no space. Okay. So, what may be possible beyond experience so far. And then science explores fundamental causation, which gives rise to observable phenomena.
Yeah.
All
So if
right.
I'm looking at fundamental causation, those big words, I'm looking at what has it happen? What's actually going on?
Mm-hmm.
And what's actually going on is being itself being, whole, perfect, complete, joyous, free, satisfied, fulfilled, and on you go. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Can I improve on that? I just have to say, oh, okay,
Right.
on you go.
On we go.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Now, to continue, in I Am My Own Ancestor on page 9, again, small type, it says, Margaret Laird says, or wrote, living as mind life is the demonstration of God being in and as understanding, making all that exists or seems to exist conscious identity, unconscious of truth as one's individual consciousness. It living, it, it
Living.
living comes to view as destructive to images and theories about truth.
Yep.
Because living isn't about truth, it is truth.
Right. And when all is infinite mind, the picture of the problem crumbles. It fades away because it was just a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of view that replaces it is that all is fine, all is well.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing going on, whole, perfect, complete. On we go.
Right. And that occurs when I'm clear about the facts present.
When I'm being
and
myself.
and I'm willing,
Yep.
curious to have about what could this be? Willing to have it be exactly the way it is, without fussing, without fixing, without judging.
Yeah. And that willingness occurs out of the understanding that what's actually present is God being, period. That's what's going on. The God idea in action, truth being truth, life, vigorous, energetic, full of joy, love, the awareness that only perfection is. That's what's going on.
Right.
And when I can live that fact, the picture shifts.
Mm-hmm.
The old picture's gone, some other picture comes up, but it's just a picture. Language is just a picture. It's an identifying thing that makes me comfortable with the way I'm living myself.
Right.
And then a problem comes up to say, next step, come on, wake up.
Right. Right.
Yep.
All right. And in Science and Health on page 285, starting on line 27, Mary Baker Eddy said that idea this way. Through knowledge of science, we seek to learn from the divine principle, God, how to demonstrate truth as the healing and saving power.
Yeah. And for instance, my attempt to do good is not allowing the God idea to be the functioning presence. Trying to interject Betty doing a good job. And what happens? Not only is the gal not happy, but Betty is squashed too.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. And then in Mind as the Athlete, you write, an informed acknowledgement of your own pre-existence is awesome power, since it is a liberation from the limitation inherent within your physical universe.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay. And of course, there, what we have as the tip is until we understand that we ourselves set the parameters on what's possible for us in every scenario of our daily lives, the experience of greatness beyond imagination is not possible.
That's right.
Now just think about that for a minute. That is amazing. So
yep.
just hold on to that thought. Now, one of the things that I want to bring up also, as we kind of close this up a little bit for today, is I want to bring to view the class we've been talking about that's happening in October. And Betty Albee here, right here, Betty, our very own Betty, is going to be leading a 5-day class. Well, just so you know, it has filled very, very quickly. We have one spot left, one. And so I bring it up because if it speaks to you to come to San Diego in October, and what's the date exactly?
The 24th through the 28th.
The 24th through the 28th. So you have to come in on the 23rd and you leave on late on the 28th or early on the 29th. If it speaks to you,
come in earlier and leave later.
That's right. It's an in-person event. It's not on Zoom. It's not virtual. It's in person, and you'll have the opportunity to spend 5 days in a class with Betty Albee, getting super solid on these principles. Now, who knows when or if she's going to do another one? It's been about 4 or 5 years since she led her last one. So I would say this is your opportunity to learn from somebody and to be in a program with somebody. And I have watched, and I speak with her. We talk every day. I've watched as she said, I'm working on day 5. This is so, and she's so energized in generating and creating this program. So if that speaks to you, there is one spot left. And you go out to, so where you go is you will go out to scientificmetaphysics.org, and there's classes. You'll sign up and put yourself in. And that's literally the opportunity that's available. And I'll say you'll avail yourself of somebody who has spent over 80 years studying this science and living this science. So just think about that, right? You just don't get a better master than that. So at any rate, that's what I have to say about it. It's an opportunity, one spot left, and it's happening in October. So any rate, so I wanted to just say that because that once that one spot, that's it. It closes, and then you still have the live streams. So, all right. To that end, I want to thank you so much for being here, and we'll be back next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And anything you want to say, Betty?
Well, we're going to continue with the Ancestor book.
Okay, so we'll do another session. Yep, we'll do another session on Ancestor. And again, if you'd like to get a copy of your own, you can go out to the website, scientificmetaphysics.org. Just look up our books, and you will be able to see I Am My Own Ancestor, and you can go ahead and order it. Any rate, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing those of you that are coming to the program in October. We're super excited about it. And until then, we'll see you on Tuesday. And we'll talk then. All right, Mom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.